all of those fields I have been to and I have been banned from is generally for shooting cheaters in the head or shooting their resident players in the head who were cheating. And what can you do? I've never been a fan of High-Capas. I've never owned one. I don't like the look of them. I don't particularly like the feel of them either. I don't like AEGs. I don't like the sound of them. I think they sound like sewing machines. You know, our record distance with one duel in an MK23 is 87 meters. And those older communities have had that rule creep where they bring in silly rules like, oh, we've got to stop people shouting pyro when they throw grenades, just in case someone doesn't have bad hearing and they want to cover up their ears. And then all of a sudden you get, that's the rule. And then people are complaining about headshots. So they start saying, yeah, okay, guys, we've got to avoid shooting the heads. I know it might happen, but avoid shooting the heads. And then someone gets shot in the head and they complain. And the field goes, right, we've been telling you to stop shooting in the head. Now people are complaining, so we're going to ban headshots. And before you know it, it's complete pussification of the game.
You're listening to the Defrowe Airsoft Podcast, hosted by Stuart Rowe. Meet the legend. Meet the legend.
This episode is brought to you by Hefe's Airsoft Solutions. Use code DEFROWE10 at checkout. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Defrowe Airsoft Podcast. Today, we are sitting down with the one and only Kicking Mustang and Airsoft Dad. Thank you very much for joining us, guys.
Very welcome, mate. Thanks for having us.
All right, man, let's jump straight into the podcast now. So I have a question here for Kicking Mustang. Now, everyone knows you're an amazing sniper. You have the best gear. You have the best guns. I'm in love with your Tokyo Marui NGRS MP5. It's just the best. I love it. I've got one too. I use it all the time. But
very cool guns.
If you lost everything and today you have to restart your entire Airsoft replica collection, knowing what you know now, what one sniper rifle and what one pistol would you go with?
Straight in at the deep end with that question. I would go for the modified style Scout as my bolt action, mostly because I know it works straight out of the box. You don't have to do anything to it. It's good to go. If you've got some teching skills, I would perhaps suggest a Blowback SRS, which has probably got a little bit more potential for longer shots. But straight out of the box without having to do anything, that modified style Scout for me is the best out of the box bolt action I've ever used. And I'd buy myself a pistol, either an MK23 or an HK45. I'm really feeling the HK45 gas blowback. I actually got it on my cross-draw holster at the moment. Tokyo Marui, one of these, which I'm really feeling at the moment. But between one of those and an MK23. So there'd be my choices to get back into the game of ghillie sniping.
Nice. They're both excellent guns. Why are you choosing those over like a Glock or a High-Capa?
I've never been a fan of High-Capas. I've never owned one. I don't like the look of them. I don't particularly like the feel of them either. I can't really say any more than that. I don't like them particularly. Glocks I quite like, but I've always found they're a bit fragile. They just don't feel the time. I'm a big Tokyo Marui fan, and maybe Tokyo Marui Glocks I've had some bad experiences with them in the past. The reason I like this one is because of the upgrades that are available for it. It's got a Hadron TDC outer barrel. So it's got a little TDC screw there, which allows me to put a lot of pressure on the hot rubber. And I use a Flamingo bucket in there. And with the flat hop knob that goes in there, I can use 0.48 BBs in this thing. And this thing's hitting 70 meters, which will outrange any AEGs. Yeah, so when you're out in the forest, it's like 1.1 joules or something. It's only a Tokyo Marui, but it'll send those heavy 0.48 BBs out to 70 meters pretty accurately. It's a really good sidearm. Something else, there's something else actually about these. The way Tokyo Marui designed them, they've got a little buffer in them. They've got like a rubber buffer that makes them a little bit quieter than most other gas blowbacks as well, interestingly.
Interesting. What do you think, Airsoft Dad? How do you weigh in on this?
For years, I've run the SSG-10, and in the last month or two, it started to let me down on the field. So I had reached out to Mr. Mustang and asked him for his opinion. He turned me on to the Steyr Scout. And I will tell you what he just said about it is 100% accurate. Out of the box, the thing is roping. I didn't have to clean the barrel. I mean, literally, it was 1.7 joules out of the box. With 0.45s, it was just under 3 joules. So I had to put an M150 spring in it. I cut some coils. I got it down to about 2.35-ish joules-ish. So it's legal on most of our fields. But it's unbelievable how accurate that thing is. And I also like the higher capacity magazines that it comes with, which are helpful. You know, you got 2 on board. They're a little bit, they're not as quick to reload because they have to have this little adapter thing. But what Kicking Mustang said, it's 100% accurate. And I'm very happy with it. I also like the short stroke of the bolt. Now listen, the SSG-10 is kind of a Remington 700 platform, which as an American, that's what we're used to, and that's the same setup as my hunting rifles. So I'm used to that feel. But I will say the short stroke of the Steyr Scout, I got the elite model, which for whatever that's worth, but it matters, and he's 100% accurate. It's a beautiful gun out of the box.
I quite like the little features on it as well, like where you can put the spare mag inside it, and you got the other thing with the little foam in it. And I put an Allen key. I push an Allen key into that foam for the TDC. I don't know whether you've done that little hack.
Yeah, I did the same. There's 2 Allen keys. Well, one for the optics, and the other one for the adjustment. It does have the TDC dial on the top. I'm not a big fan of the fold down legs. I do wish there was a lug on the front. Maybe there's an aftermarket so I can put a different bipod on it. But for one outing, and I took some video. I played with it last weekend, and I didn't do anything with the video because it was raining. And I think when it rains, it's a terrible way to test a gun because one little small raindrop screws everything up with the BB's flight. So I'm going to do a nice day like today type of setup. But it's a great sniper rifle, no question.
I used to think that about the bipod when I first got it. I thought, the bipods, I'm not going to get much use out of it. But the thing about bipods when you're ghillie sniping especially is a normal bipod, a Harris bipod, those legs stick out at the front and they get caught on vegetation. They get in the way a little bit. And they're also a little bit heavy as well. But that Steyr Scout, because it's plastic and it folds up, it's streamlined, so it doesn't get caught anywhere. And it's you don't notice it when it's not deployed, but it does give you that option to use it if you do need it.
No, that's cool. You always want nice light bipods because I've got big heavy metal ones and you just getting them caught on everything and they just add so much weight. So yeah, lighter the better. All right, nice. Let's move on to another technical question. So with improvements around batteries, MOSFETs, and motors, is the gap between HPA and AEG performance closing? Or is there still like a wide gap between the 2 platforms?
Mate, this one is above my pay grade. I don't like AEGs. I don't like the sound of them. I think they sound like sewing machines. There's no drama about them either. The only I've only recently, I used to have a couple of AEGs many years ago, but probably I haven't bought one for about 7 or 8 years, and I bought that new Tokyo Marui MP5 NGRX, which is lovely. It's just a really, really nice gun. But it still lacks a little bit of drama. So that's why I don't know much about them. The only interesting thing I've got to add to the discussion on batteries, I don't know whether I've got it here or not, I might do it, is I was in Turkey of all places. And so there's a guy over there in Turkey that's made a Lipo charger. That is a Lipo charger. And you can plug any USB-C in, and you can put it into your Deans, and that will charge batteries or Lipo batteries. It's set for, this one's like a 7.4, so you've got to have one specifically for the battery you're using. But this technology, that could change things a bit. And you can keep it in your car, keep it in your pocket, and just you can plug an iPhone into it, and your iPhone will charge your Lipo battery. Have you seen anything like that before?
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Nope, I've never seen anything like that. I saw a USB charger, which allows you to charge your Lipos via USB, but that's all I've seen.
Yeah. So but everything else, mate, it's over my head, and Airsoft Dad's going to know a lot more than me about this.
Airsoft Dad, did you want me to ask this question just so you could answer it?
No, I mean, listen, he's touched everything, right? And his response to the AGs are like sewing machines, especially when they're by your ears. There's no question that's the case. To me, what I've figured out or seen, and I have HPA and I run some AEGs, but I believe it's closing a little bit the MOSFETs and the improvements on the MOSFETs are allowing for a better trigger response. The better batteries are allowing for the ability to push longer distances with a little bit more energy. The improvements on the motors. So I definitely think the gap is closing. Technology moves so fast. Who knows in 2 years if it, or 5 years, 10 years, whatever it's going to look like. But I definitely feel like it's closing. The interesting part of this, question was it's about there's this race with newer players to get into something as quickly as possible. And the trend of late, from what I've seen, at least locally, is everyone's getting into HPA. And you kind of see it too with some of the manufacturers where they're doing like onboard bottles and things like that because they think that's where the market is going. But I think too that if you take a really decent AEG and you put in a little bit better MOSFET, a little bit better battery, and change out the motor, I think you're going to be 80% there than what an HPA gives you. And you can carry several batteries on your body. If you run out of air, you're a little bit hosed, right? Now, the other thing, like I don't have much experience with gas blowback. My son loves gas blowback. He runs an AK and he loves it. And that's also becoming pretty popularized now, is getting that real steel weighted gas blowback setups where you're running 30-round mags, the real milsim stuff, right? That's getting really popular by us too. And I think part of that too is because the guns are getting better and they're not having to screw with them as much as they used to. Like 3 or 4 years ago, every gas blowback, that I've seen a kid run or a person run, it just didn't run at all. They're always cursing at it, but now we're getting much better. And the AKs, the HK416s.
Mustang has something.
Yeah, those subs. Yeah.
Is that a Tokyo Marui AKM?
This thing is amazing. Gas blowback, and this thing using 0.48 BBs again with very few mods. I've just got an upgraded hop arm with Amiga nub and flamingo bucking. Everything else is standard on the inside. And this thing, as a gas blowback, it's only got 30-round mags, but it uses 0.48s, and at 1.3 joules, it's hitting 75 meters accurately. And it's a real struggle to get an AEG to hit 75 meters. So that's an advantage that gas blowbacks have, that they can lift the heavy BBs.
And if I could just say, James just made a good point about joules. For some reason, there's this feeling out there in the community of airsoft that you got the hotter the gun runs, meaning the higher the joules, the better performance. It's just not true. I mean, I've got an AEG that's pretty beefed up. It's running 1.1, 1.2 joules, and it's shooting 200 feet all day long. Where I don't have to, these kids are running, trying to get their tanks up, pushing. Sometimes they're doing it after they chrono, unfortunately, but it just doesn't matter. What you need to figure out is a joule limit that allows you for the performance and accuracy of that replica at the distances you're going to play at. And that's it. And if that gun is reaching, the distances that James just said at the joule limit, that's perfect. Because the hotter it is, the more gas you're running or you're expending. So who cares? Just tune it down to where you can save on gas.
They're very fun summer guns.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. Yeah, that too. But yeah, that's just something I always see too. Like, I got to get my joules up. Well, you guys have like black gas and red.
I think these Tokyo Marui NWS systems and the AKM systems have really changed things. So these work in really low temperatures as well. These have really changed gas blowback gameplay.
Yeah, my first airsoft gun like 20 years ago was a gas blowback. It was the MP5K by Marui with that like tiny little like 20-round gas magazine. And
no hop.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic gun with no hop. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. And it'll shoot 20 meters fairly straight. So it's okay for indoors, but it's really just for shooting stuff in the house. And when you compare that to the stuff that's available now, like it's just completely different. So yeah, GBB has come a long way in the last 20 years.
And they're so much fun. It's an experience.
And like, it's fun, like even when it doesn't work, like when like, you get a misfire or something, you have to clear it and stuff like that. It's very similar to a real gun. So it just like, it's got that added realism that really puts you in the game. And, having to use the cocking handle after the reload and stuff like that, it's just all fun.
Yep, I agree.
All right, so let's look at a question now that I'm sure Mustang will be able to answer in just a lot of detail. We all know that you're incredibly good at concealment and you can just vanish into the desert, into the jungle, really any way you want. How did you learn all about camouflage and concealment?
I guess I've always loved hide and seek. Even as a kid, it was my favorite game, just hide and seek.
You just went pro at hide and seek then.
I think so. Yeah, that's how I see my airsoft game. I'm playing hide and seek. I don't see myself playing a simulation of a military sniper. I see myself playing a game of hide and seek. But how did I get good at making ghillie suits and concealment outfits? I just look. I look at the environment. I look at how I fit in. I'm not sure. I just taught myself really. There were some videos I watched. I remember when YouTube kind of started 15 years ago. I was always interested in watching the military guys making ghillie suits on there. I think when I started airsoft.
Yeah, I've seen a few of those. They're quite interesting.
Yeah, and those old technologies they're still all those old techniques of shape, shine, silhouette. All of those old techniques are still quite important. Even things like I don't know. I when I'm out and about in the forest and I'm looking at what the environment around me, and when I spot nature, things like deer. When I spot a deer, I tend to spot it because of the horizontal back. And when I'm in the forest, I've always thought there's not many horizontal lines. You obviously get horizontal tree branches, but I see guys trying to sneak around in the forest, and often they're hunched over with their guns. And I've always had this belief that that's why I spot deer. So when I'm sneaking in the forest, I tend to be upright with my gun down, upright like a tree. And so I'm moving slowly with like my feet together. I don't want to have my feet apart because there's not many trees which are like that with big gaps in the middle. So I keep my feet together and be upright. And all this stuff is just observation and trial and error. And the great thing about playing airsoft is you can try it every week, try these different techniques, and often it's just a confidence trick, just having confidence in your concealment, knowing how you fit into the environment. And that comes from practice, looking at it, taking pictures of yourself, taking videos of yourself when you're out there. And it's a confidence trick a lot of the time, because if you're not moving, often people aren't looking for things that aren't moving. Or if you're sometimes you're standing in the middle of nowhere, but if you're together and you've got a veil over your head, and if the shadows are just right, you're standing in the shadows, sometimes people just don't even think that can't be a person because he's not standing there with the gun out with his legs apart, and they don't twig that there's someone there if you're stood in a certain way. Sometimes it's about fitting in rather than even hiding. Sometimes it's not possible to disappear. Sometimes it's possible just to fit in rather than to blend in. And that's kind of my ethos a lot of the time. If that makes sense?
This sounds like the tutorial for Assassin's Creed. I remember the first level was just all about this and how you need to use social stealth when you're not able to use full concealment. And yeah, man, it works. That game was a bomb.
It's just observation. Like even when you're at an airsoft field and if you haven't played there much before, you can often see where people are going to be walking. But even things like the tracks, you can see where players generally walk in fields if they've got all the tracks. So you can ambush players because you'll know that they will generally follow like water. They'll go down the easiest route. So if you go off the easiest route and get line of sight, so the clues are out there. And I think it'll be hard to. I've never seen a video or vlogs or blogs about beyond those 7 S's that the snipers schools always teach. I've never seen anything beyond that. And I guess it's instinct, looking, observing, and knowing how you fit into your environment.
Yeah, I've tried sniping a few times. I have, I think, 5 or 6 sniper rifles. I think that's probably thanks to you and Novrich and just those amazing sniper videos online. But man, I do not have the patience for it. Like I'm assault through and through. I'm just going to run up on someone and just charge them every fucking time. I don't have the patience for sniping. And in Japan, we're stuck at 1 joule. So we've only got like 40, 50 meter ranges. So it's quite hard to make a go of it as a sniper because, my sniper rifle and my CO2 pistols have the same distance.
Get yourself an MK23 with some .48 BBs at 1 joule. Our record distance with 1 joule in an MK23 is 87 meters in perfect shooting conditions, no wind, nothing, and it's on video. There's a video of it, and all laser ranged. And that was with a .50. That was with a black .50 BB, 87 meters. I did it with my mate Paul Smith, and that was probably 5 years ago. We did that, perfect shooting conditions, and it was using. I think we were using a maple leaf rubber, or it might have been a flamingo. It might have been an early flamingo rubber. But yeah, you don't need power to get the range, and these BBs, they just float. If you can generate enough spin on that BB, it will float a very long way.
Well, that's something like Airsoft Dad is really good at. So like BB trajectories and like distance based on weight and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I just, again, through my trial and error and watching other players, there's this, everyone's hooked on velocity and BB weight, and I always tell people just find whatever's best for you and your conditions. Stu, you just mentioned you don't like sniping. I like it. I like all styles of play. I usually snipe as I get more tired in the day. But I will tell you, there's nothing more satisfying than a long range shot when you just take one shot and you hit. You know, it's easy to pump 15, 20 BBs down range, knowing one will hopefully hit. But when you get that one shot, and you hit that mask and it just goes chink and you can hear it 200 meters or whatever it is, it's so satisfying. The other thing too is when you get shot by a sniper, you typically know you got hit by a sniper rifle. There's just that energy behind the BB. But yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that Kicking Mustang and Average in these early sniping videos that we all got hooked on was, again, how easy they make it look. So they think, I'll buy that gun, I'll buy the Ghillie, and I'll go do it. But that's that's such a small part of this equation as a whole, right? You got to get the skill set. And, you know, like when I play Airsoft, you know, the first thing it gives you away is the orange tip on your replica. And then after that, it's movement, right? So if you know how people move, and to, you know, James' point, how animals hide, you know, and I think that's why a lot of times too, as a hunter myself, and I understand how nature works, and I understand how animals hide. And when you're sniping, you want to emulate that. If you've ever seen somebody who hunts turkey, they're usually, like James said, they're sitting upright, they're against a tree, and they're very still. And those birds have very, very good vision. And it's about the concealment, but more importantly, just don't move. And that's the biggest mistake I think airsofters make, is they move too quickly too often. Just pause. You know, I don't care if you're, you know, moving into position out, just pause for a second and just get out of there slowly. It doesn't have to be, you know, haul butt every single time. It's just not that necessary. Even assaulters, right? They're just running up, getting hit, and they're running back. It's a back and forth game. Just slow down your level of play, and you're just going to have more fun, and you're probably going to get more hits along the way too.
Yeah. So like I find the best way to play Assault with the two basic strategies that we use. Number one is like if you can just start the game really, really quickly, and you can just sprint all the way into the enemy base and then just take like a power position where the enemy's going to be going past you. You don't know that they don't know you're there, and you can just like eliminate half the enemy team. That's always fantastic. Let's look at a different point now. I've heard that Mustang is traveling all around the world. And what's it like playing Airsoft in different countries? Do you notice a big difference, or is it basically the same game?
It's pretty much the same game. But where, funnily enough, I think some of the best places I've played Airsoft, they have a younger community where Airsoft hasn't been around so long. So, for example, South Africa has got quite a young Airsoft community there. There's not loads of rules. Whereas the more mature Airsoft communities get, such as in the UK, which has got like something like 250 Airsoft fields, and there's games on it in crazy amount. I would say England has probably got more Airsoft fields than any other country in the world. They're not necessarily the best, and there's a lot of very, very average Airsoft fields, but they've got a lot. How many Airsoft? I'm not sure. I don't know how many Japan's got.
I've got 100 within an hour of me.
Wow.
I've got, from the 3 prefectures that I have access to, 4 prefectures that are an hour from my apartment, I've got about 100. So I don't know how many are in the whole country, but lots.
Amazing. Yeah. So Japan's probably got the most then. But I would say the UK is probably second, probably nowhere near the hundreds that Japan has got. That's the case. But we do have a lot of Airsoft fields. But
what about America? I always think America's going to have tons of fields, but like when I talk to Americans, it seems like there's only like everyone's just got like one field they go to. Does America like not have that many fields?
No, we do. But I think one of the things that people tend to forget is like the UK is the size of like one US state, right? And so there's a huge consolidation. You have a lot of people in a smaller landmass that kind of come together, where the US were very much spread out. The other thing too is a lot of these airsoft fields, the outdoor ones, of course, they have to go to areas that are usually outside of kind of a city limit, if you will, where they can get the permitting, and it's just because insurance and stuff here is really, it's just difficult, right? And it gets very onerous and very expensive. So the fields you typically see are ones that have been around for a while. There aren't a lot of new fields popping up. When they do, it's usually like a couple guys in a backyard, they own a farm and they're trying to do something, but you just don't see a lot of movement. There's a lot more towards the indoor move now with the speed stuff.
That's the other Airsoft dad that you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's what he did.
Yeah, so there's a lot of that going on, and but we have a lot of fields. Like for me, I think maybe like 3-hour drive, there's probably 8 fields. But there's it does seem like in Europe, throughout Europe, there's a lot more consolidation of fields. And they also have the really cool, these World War II, style barracks and bases that are closed in older buildings. I mean, in the U.S. here, an old building is 50 years. In Europe, you can have a building that's 300-400 years old, and people are living in it. And so it's just a different mindset, I think, when people look at, conditions and abilities and things like that.
Yeah, for me, what I love about traveling to different places is that I love going to fields that feel very organic. They feel natural. There's not purpose-built barricades. There's not plywood buildings. You're not playing in things that look like sheds in people's backyards. I want stuff that looks like it's an old building. It feels like there's history there. And places like the Bear's Head in France, which is an old Napoleonic fortress on a mountain with 200 acres of forest, and there's the owners found an MG42 buried in the rocks there and had to hand it in, and there's all the spikes that the Germans put in there in the Second World War at the bottom of the mountain and it's all very loads of history. And when you're there and you stop for a minute, you think, wow, am I actually really playing airsoft in this place? It's amazing. And old Victorian buildings in Belgium or in South Africa, you've got an abandoned hospital, which is like literally 9 stories of just huge abandoned multi-building hospital, which is falling apart, and the rules are very relaxed there. So like you can break windows to get into these rooms, doors get kicked in, and it's very it's not. I fell down an open manhole cover there and got quite a nasty injury there, and it's not ideal for everybody to play in those sort of places, but I love playing those sort of places. I'm going to Brazil in 3 weeks' time, and there's an abandoned industrial town there, which is like, I think it's 2.5 hectares of abandoned industrial buildings, and it just looks the most incredible place I've ever seen. And that's why I would travel halfway around the world to go and play in venues and buildings that feel natural.
Yeah, I'm 100%. All of my favorite fields in Japan are all like abandoned structures and stuff that have no purpose-built barricades, and you can practice real clearing. And it's just so much more fun. It feels so artificial when there's fake plywood and fake barricades everywhere. It just takes it away. And now for a commercial break. Are you looking for a company that puts the community first? Look no further than Hefe's Airsoft Solutions. The founding principle of Hefe's Airsoft Solutions is to offer a way for players of all types to get the greatest experience possible. Their passion is making a difference in local communities and serving each of their customers with the utmost respect. Become part of the conversation by joining hundreds of fellow airsofters in their Discord server. There, you can find out about upcoming events, sales, giveaways, and more. Join us today and start enjoying all that Hefe's Airsoft Solutions has to offer. Together, we can make a difference in our community. And for listeners of the podcast, tap into the power of the code Defrowe10 and save 10% on your next purchase at hefesairsoft.solutions.com. Some exclusions apply. The more you use the code, the more it helps the podcast. Okay, back to the podcast. All right, so here is one of the questions that I wanted to ask today. I talked to some of my friends today at Airsoft, and I say, hey, I'm talking to Mustang today. What are some good questions to ask Mustang? And my friend Dan, who is just one of the best Airsoft players I know, suggested that I ask you, what made you want to be a ghillie sniper? Was it the all ghillied up level in Modern Warfare 4?
No, it wasn't. I think the first time I ever played Airsoft, I thought I'm going to make a ghillie suit because it just seemed like the way to win the game. Like being invisible, like it's the ultimate superpower, isn't it? Like if you're invisible, you can do what you want.
Yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it. All right, so we've seen the kicking Mustang ghillies popping up on Instagram and stuff like that. How much time and cost goes into making kicking Mustang Ghillie?
Yeah, the in terms of cost, it's half the cost is materials, half is tailoring. So it's no point building a good suit without having. It's no point having good materials if it's not going to fit properly, or it doesn't have the features, or it's not in the. It doesn't hang right. It doesn't cover up your shape. But it's, at the same time, it's no point having something that has the hood that covers your entire, disrupts your head and shoulder shape, having anything down the back, and even all the features like I've got in the suit, the cufflinks covering up your hands, so all of your human features are distorted. There's no point having that if the colours are unnatural and the materials aren't strong. Because a lot of people we're all like, if you're into ghillie sniping, you're probably going to spend a lot of time crafting. Like I'm in the middle of crafting a suit here for the terrain I'll be playing in Brazil, and you spend a lot of time. So the material, you don't want a suit that's going to fall apart. It's got to be strong. It's got to be breathable. Like there's no point having an amazing ghillie suit like these traditional ghillie suits that everyone, when they think of the all ghillied up level on Call of Duty, those traditional fluffy ghillie suits, they're hot. They get tangled.
Those are like stalker suits, and they're heavy and they stink because like you have to like cover the scent and stuff like that. So you leave it outside for 2 or 3 weeks. It's not something that you can leave in a Tokyo apartment.
No. But there's always compromises in anything. But if you can get a suit that's made of material that's lightweight, it's breathable, it's the perfect colors that match your environment, and when you put it on, you're not going to get super hot, and you're also mobile as well. And it gives you 360 concealment. So I'm looking to make suits that there's no compromise. So it's breathable, it's lightweight, strong, the right colors, it disrupts your shape, and you're free to move. And when you craft it, it's not going to fall apart. It's going to last. I call them a suit for life. I mean, of course, your knees, if you're crawling around on concrete and rocks, your knees will eventually go through, but you can repair them. You can stick patches on them, and they are a suit for life. And that's really important, that it's not just having something that's beautifully made with a good tailor. It's got to have the right material. So it's a 50-50 thing. There's a lot that goes into it. And when I lost my, it's no secret that up until just over a year ago, I was working with a Russian tailor. And obviously with the Ukraine situation, that caused a lot of issues. And the reason I haven't rushed back in to produce another suit is because it's not perfect. The materials are really hard to make. One of the factory I work with to make my adaptive ghillie mesh, for example, they're experts on materials, and they believe there's only a couple of places in Europe that could potentially get close to making the materials that my ghillie suit's made out of. So it's taken a long time to find a place in the world that can reproduce the correct materials and be able to print it in the right way with the right colors. And that's why it's taken me over a year to get production back up and running again, because for me it's got to be perfect, and it's a combination of all of those things I've just touched on.
Yeah, and one thing that I think is really interesting is kind of like the difference between like airsoft ghillies and like real ghillies. And like when real snipers are using ghillies, they have to be like, invisible from 50 meters, 100 meters, 200 meters, a kilometer away. But for airsoft, you need to be invisible 10 meters from someone. And just that difference of like close range invisibility versus mid-range invisibility is so different. And like, I feel like leaf suits and stuff like that are really helping. So the leaf suits and stuff that you've developed, man, they're cool. Like we see them popping up in Japan on the Japanese auction sites, like KCMS, like branded ghillie mesh and stuff like that, where people have bought it and they're reselling it in Japan. So it's finding its way over here, man. It's popular.
The airsoft, well, not say airsoft, but the ghillie crafting, so the niche within airsoft, the ghillie community, the techniques and methods that we have developed over the specifically the last 5 or 6 years, but probably the last 10 years, have taken camouflage and ghillie crafting to a new level that the military had not reached that level. And I would say what we have done in the ghillie crafting community is taken camo and concealment to a new level that had not been seen before with the military. Even the things like the meshes we're using, the materials, it's much more advanced technology now. The way the materials react to light. 10 years ago, you wouldn't it wasn't possible. And yeah, what looks like a simple piece of mesh is what that does. The way it reacts to light, the way it intensifies, the way it changes depending on what conditions it's in. It doesn't look like much, but that stuff has certainly made the ability to craft suits and blend in a hell of a lot easier without the use of natural veg. And when you add traditional techniques into that as well, then I think Ghillie suits now compared to 10 years ago, it's night and day what we've achieved. And the Ghillie crafting community within Airsoft should be very proud of itself. And I think, it's not shouted about enough, I think.
Yeah, like I've been playing Airsoft now for about 20 years. So I've seen lots of like changes in technology and stuff like that. And thinking back like 20 years ago, like people wore some Ghillies to games, but lots of them were just store-bought Ghillies and stuff. And they're all like just one or two colors. They didn't match the field and stuff like that. And then, you had a few people would make their own and stuff, but Ghillies were always very, well, to draw from millennials, just very mid. But recently they have just exploded, like really since the introduction of leaf suits and stuff like that in the last 5 years, man, people just disappear on the field. And if it weren't for like their red bands or yellow bands, like I would not be able to identify them. I just shoot into the trees when I think someone's going to be there because they're invisible. Was there anything you wanted to add to this, Airsoft Dad?
I was just going to say that, there's a lot of people out there that think like military is like a leading indicator on what's out there. And usually it's a trailing, you get these contracts, right? 10, 20-year contracts. But it's even like the red dot optic. I've been competitive, shooting for over 20 years, and the red dot, came about maybe 3 or 4 years into it. The military adopted it well after competitive shooters did because it was allowed in competitive shooting, and then Trijicon and some of these companies started refining it, and then special forces get into it, and now the ACOGs are everywhere. But there's these niches out there, whether it's competitive shooting, Airsoft, that are really innovating for the purpose of that game, and then others start picking up on it and seeing it and say, okay, how can we adapt that to more of a mil-spec, type of element, whether it's, again, optics or Ghillie crafting and whatever. You look at some of these, World War II, Vietnam era Ghillies that are out there. They're just burlap and just whatever they had, they put it together. There really wasn't much thought behind it, where today my guess is, they're following suit to what, Kicking Mustangs mentioned as far as what the materials are, the reflectivity of that material, being specific for that, zone, all that kind of stuff. I say, Ghillie suits, and they're going to come across what James, but yeah, it's unbelievable how little niches within the world really impact greater markets, because those markets, they jump on Google too, right? And they're just saying, it's like, well, hell, look at this thing. This is beyond what we have in the military. And then special forces gets involved and they start looking at stuff. So it's just a cycle, but the niches are often the ones that bring it to market first.
Yeah, well, isn't what they always say, like necessity is the mother of invention? So makes sense. Mustang, if you're going to give people like 3 tips on how to make their Ghillie suit better, what would they be apart from, buy KCMS mesh?
The KCMS mesh does help. Like it does, because it's super realistic. Like when it's out there and you put it on a suit and it's in the sunlight or in the shadows, it does look like it looks like natural veg. It's amazing. But the thing that I think the thing that I see most people, the biggest mistake I see most people doing at the moment, when I go to airsoft fields and I kind of go, oh God, and I kind of cringe a bit when I see some of these suits, is that they'll just go and buy a leaf suit, and they'll go and just buy a bunch of random fake leaves, and they'll just stick them on randomly. And these leaves, they don't even fit the season. Like they could be like rich orange fake leaves and it's in springtime, or they've got green leaves on and it's in winter, or they've got a mix of everything. They just buy, because they've got these leaves, they just stick them on and they put them all over their suits, and it doesn't look natural. And the most important thing, there's not probably 3 tips I can give, but the most important tip you've got to do is understand how your suit fits into the environment you're going to be playing in. And that means taking it out there, looking at it, hanging it up, even get it on a hanger. Just go out to a wood somewhere, get your suit on a hanger, hang it up, take a step back, look at it and be honest and go, Christ, I've just spent 2 or 3 hours putting those leaves on that suit, but it looked bloody awful. And you've got to be honest with yourself and how it fits in. And even if it's getting your partner or your mum or dad to go out with you and take pictures of you when you're out there hiding, and just seeing how your colours blend in. Because sometimes it's when you're crafting with AGM, for example, the adaptive Ghillie mesh, when you're doing it, it might be like at night time and you're in your apartment or in your house and you got artificial lights on and you're putting it together, you think this doesn't actually look that good. But when you get it out into the natural environment, that's the only time you know whether it's really working or not.
Yeah, dude, I hear. Like, I remember the first time I made my first Ghillie, and I put on all the different leaves, all the wrong colors, just as you said, and then when I went out and like looked at it in the field, it just stood out like a sore thumb. So yeah, you need to make it for the terrain and lots of trial and error. Yeah, good advice. All right, so here's one you can do for me. So I tried to organize a Airsoft event in Japan for my birthday, which is coming up, and I wanted to rent out the local field and have like a big party with all of my friends there. But then I was surprised to find out that I had been banned from the field. As someone who has also been apparently banned from a few sites, how do you handle this situation?
I've been banned from that field as well. That wouldn't surprise me. How do I deal with that situation? Look, I'm banned from a lot of fields, but of the fields I'm banned from, I've probably only been to 5% of them. All the other ones are just fields that are piggybacking off my name and my reputation, and they've got trolls at their field or Mustang haters who pressure their field. And also sometimes these fields get one of the trolls who are promoting a ban list, and they will get contacted by trolls who say, Kicking Mustang, he shoots kids in the head, he puts people in hospital, he cheats. Look, we've got all this evidence because all these other fields have banned him. Therefore, you've got to ban him as well. And they go, okay, then we'll ban him. Sure, put us on the list.
Mob mentality, great.
And exactly, that's all it is. It's mob mentality, cancel culture. So how do you deal with that? Well, there's two ways you can do it. You can just ignore it, which I did for a long time because it didn't really affect me that much. But then the other way you can deal with it is just to ridicule them. And as my channel grew, I've kind of at times I've used what they do to ridicule them. Like only today, I think there's another troll who's put up a video about what a bad person I am because there's videos of me shooting people in the head in the game of Airsoft, and I'm a bad person and I should be banned from all over the place. And so I'm going to use that video to ridicule him back and use it for clickbait. But how do you deal with being banned? Well, I guess first,
is it like a Machine Gun Kelly situation, you reckon, where they're just like poking the bear so they can like get their 15 minutes of fame, get a little bit of clout, get a little bit of attention?
100%, yeah.
Or
100%.
do you think they really believe that people getting shot in the face is the highest of all crimes?
I think there are genuinely airsoft justice warriors in the community, and they want to raise themselves up within their hierarchy within their subreddit or within whatever Facebook group they're in by making a virtue signal that something is bad and they think it should be banned. And that's what they're doing. They're saying, well, this YouTuber is a bad person, and if you like him, you're also a bad person. And if we don't ban this person who's never been to our field, we're bad people, and we have to ban people like this. And that makes us virtuous, and it rises them up within their social hierarchy. That's what I think is happening. It's a quick and easy hack to raise up within their society.
Dude, I agree with that 100%. Like, you see virtue signaling just way too much these days. I'm lucky we don't have it too much in Japan, but yeah, it's just prevalent all through US and UK. You just see it online all the time. But yeah, I'm sorry you have to deal with that stuff, man. It's not fun.
No, dude, don't be sorry, man. Like, here's the thing. I genuinely appreciate these people. Like I'm doing this video at the moment and I'm editing it, and it's not a bad video. I started out and I thought, God, this is gonna be a bit dull. But I finished it. I thought, actually, this is a lovely video. I was hoping to get it out today, and it's not going to go out today. It's probably going to be tomorrow or Sunday. But one of the most important things when you're making a video for YouTube, if you're serious about making a video go viral, like to get traction in the algo, it's got to be clickable. So you can have the best video, but if YouTube starts to show it to the YouTube community and no one clicks on it, YouTube will go, well, we're wasting our real estate here. We don't care how good the video is. Nobody's clicking on it, so there's no point. So you've got to have something that's clickable. So I've made this great video, and my dog's called in. Bailey, go away. I've made this great video, and I haven't got a thumbnail. But then all of a sudden today, this pops up. Someone sends me a message on Instagram. Hey, there's another. Look at this video this troll's made of you. And the troll's going, oh yeah, Kicking Mustang. He's the worst person in Airsoft. He's the most hated person. He's banned from 40 fields, and that's empirical evidence that he's a psychopath. It's just a perfect clickbait for my video. And like, how do you deal with it? I'm like super grateful for these people, because it allows me to put a title on my video, the absolutely mad, insane reasons I'm banned from fields, and I'll clickbait it.
And it's intriguing. Then you want to click on it. You want to find out.
Exactly. So yeah, it's life, mate. You just got to deal with it. Do you follow what Andrew Tate does?
I followed Andrew Tate like when he first blew up, like when he was like the most interesting man in the world, when like that thing was going around.
Did you see what he did this week?
No, I haven't seen anything in the last few months.
It's funny what he's done. So he's under house arrest. You know, he got arrested in Romania for whatever crimes they've accused him of.
I heard about that.
He's been in jail for months, and no charges have been pressed, and he's been released and he's under house arrest. But just before he went, I think it was last year, Vice, the magazine had just gone bankrupt, the media organisation has just gone bankrupt. They did a hit piece on him, and they manipulated the footage that they recorded of him. And the reporter who did the hit piece was ringing up Andrew Tate, and essentially he's turned the person who did the hit piece on him, he's been ringing him up to try and do another interview. Andrew Tate has trolled him into bringing him a box of chocolates to do the interview, and he's flown all the way from England to his house under house arrest and given this box of chocolates basically, and been sent packing, and he's turned a video and sent this thing viral, and he's just laughing about it. And I guess the point of what I'm trying to make is I genuinely find these people funny, because it doesn't affect me. If you're banned from a field you don't go to, it doesn't affect you.
Yeah. This is a field I did go to, though. That's why I got banned.
Right. Yeah, if you're banned from a field you've been to, then that's something else. There's a couple of fields I've been to that I have been banned from. And yeah, you either ignore them or you get on the attack. And all of those fields I have been to and I have been banned from is generally for shooting cheaters in the head, or shooting their resident players in the head who were cheating. And what can you do?
Are you not allowed to shoot people in the head? Like, I thought you could shoot them anywhere.
Of course you can. Yeah.
Is it like an honor thing? Like it's less honorable to shoot in the head, or is it like against the rules? Because in Japan, like headshots are completely clean. Like no one will complain about them.
Yeah, it's an Airsoft Justice Warrior campaign in the UK that's kind of spreading a little bit into Europe, but it's generally a UK thing. But I don't think it's because it's shooting people in the head. I think it's probably because it's me, and because a lot of my videos go viral because they're headshots, and so they look for ways to attack me, and that's where the whole anti-headshot thing came from, if I'm being honest. I might be wrong.
My most popular videos are my headshots. Yeah, I love watching a good headshot. Like, I talk to my friends that don't play Airsoft, and like one of my friends was talking to me today, like he's like this 50-year-old guy. He's like, hey, I was watching YouTube the other day, and like this thing came on the TV where people were shooting each other with BB guns. It was hilarious. I watched it for an hour. I'm like, oh yeah, was it Silo or Novrich or Mustang? It's like, oh yeah, the guy was called Mustang. I was like, yeah. Like people that don't even know about Airsoft find this entertaining. So yeah, it's value
it's
to
great fun. It's great fun to watch. Wear face protection. Jeez, you don't like it.
I don't understand the fields. They get involved in these little disputes. It's not for the betterment of the fields or the game as a whole. I sometimes feel like airsoft fields are like the government. They have to change the rules for the sake of changing rules instead of just saying these are the rules. The game of airsoft hasn't changed. Yes, the equipment's improved, but the game as a whole is the same. So why do we keep changing the rules because like one or two people are complaining? Just don't keep changing the rules for the minority, because it's going to destroy everything. Well, that's it. And then we're down to gel blasters because people are crying. Yeah,
rule creep.
Exactly. It's absolutely right. And so just these people, if you can't handle it, then maybe the game's not for you. Figure something else out. But I go out there expecting to get shot in the face. That's just how I play. If you're otherwise, then maybe it's just not for you. Don't complain about it.
As we touched on earlier, I was saying the fields that I enjoy playing at most are in the countries where the community is generally younger, or is a younger community, whereas the communities that tend to be much older, decades old, like Japan probably, although I've never been, but certainly the UK. Some of the European communities have been around for coming on 2 decades rather than just a couple of 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And those older communities have had that rule creep where they bring in silly rules like, oh, we've got to stop people shouting pyro when they throw grenades, just in case someone doesn't have bad hearing and they want to cover up their ears. And then all of a sudden you get, that's the rule. And then people are complaining about headshots. So they start saying, yeah, okay, guys, we've got to avoid shooting the heads. I know it might happen, but avoid shooting the heads. And then someone gets shot in the head and they complain. And the field goes, right, we've been telling you to stop shooting in the head. Now people are complaining, so we're going to ban headshots. And before you know it, it's complete pussification of the game.
And it's nearly impossible to create a standard, global standard especially, but even a regional standard with associations, because who's going to agree to it, right? So, but to me, it's not that difficult to police this and make it to where there's some synergies.
Well, do you know Viraj? He's Skinny Bitch's husband. He's like up in there in Belgium Airsoft. He's trying to push through like a worldwide standardization of rule sets for Airsofts. So every country, every field, every place can all play with like standardized rule sets. So everything is fair, because like every field in Japan, we have a different rule set. It's so hard to memorize all the rule sets.
I mean, it's certainly harder for the player because you don't know what you're walking into if you're playing a new field. And then the equipment I've used at 10 fields is now illegal because here they dropped it from 2.5 to 2.2 or something like that. And that's the struggle. But also as players, we have to come to adapt and just expect it to be different wherever we go to play. I'm just tired of listen, at my age, I get tired quickly of people who whine about stuff. Just shut up about it. If it's not for you, then walk away. Don't ruin it for me, because I don't have a problem with it, and nor the other 98% of us. Just walk away.
Yeah, it's a military simulation for a reason. Like, there's guns, you get shot, it hurts. That's it.
I'll tell you a funny tale. One of the funnest places I played Airsoft, most enjoyable place I've played Airsoft, but also one of the scariest places I played Airsoft is Turkey, where their limits. I had my gun there, and you go to the field, and they say, "Oh, so what's the limit here?" And they go, "Oh, it's 3.6 joules." Okay, cool. Have you got chrono? Oh no, we don't. No, we don't. As long as it's around 3.6 joules, you're fine. Can I chrono? No, we haven't got any chronos here, but as long as it's roughly that. But I tell you what, the game was amazing, because when those BBs were coming at you, you knew it. It was fizzing. And when you were hit, you knew you were hit. And when they were hit, they knew they were hit. There wasn't any cheating.
So like today, like was playing Airsoft, and it's an outdoor field. We're at 1 joule, and you can use 0.25 BBs as the max weight. And lots of engagements are at 40 meters or so. And when I was getting shot at like 40 meters, the BB was like just touching me, and then there was no pain. I could barely feel it. I felt like something touched me. I was like, oh, it's a BB. There was no force, no impact. It was just, it's like a twig fell on me or something. And it's like, yeah, I'm out. And it was more an inconvenience than anything else. And
you want to feel it, don't you?
I want to play Airsoft with, I want to feel it. Like, one thing that I think is really important is it should hurt when you get shot, because then it makes you play differently. If you're scared of being hit, you're not going to bum rush 20 people. You're going to be, if you're going to be punished, you're going to be then a lot more careful how you play. And it makes it more interesting. But when you're just like spraying people and dashing in, spraying other people, it's, when there's trades, no one's going to want to trade at 3 joules. So it makes the game more interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
Most of the people who scream about players not calling their hits, they didn't hit the player. They just think they hit the player. And it's just this whining about it. No, but I got a player 3 weeks ago, and I was sniping and he wasn't, and I can see through my scope where his BB, they're falling like 20 feet in front of me, and he's losing his mind. You know, I hit you. I'm like, no, you didn't hit me. I mean, you can't see. Again, he's shooting an AEG this great distance, and he just thinks he's hitting me, and it just stop. Just stop. If you hit me, I promise you I will call it.
You can't see the bullet drop from certain angles, but yeah, unless it's point blank and you see the BBs, it's just give them the benefit of the doubt. That's what I do.
And that's why I also like sniping, because when you hit somebody with a sniper, a heavier BB, they react. There's a physical reaction. They're especially hitting the head, their neck shoots back. But just like, I don't call your hits, don't call my hits. Let's assume we're doing the right thing, and I call my hits all the time, but I'm not going to yell at you if I think I hit it, especially if it's raining or there's vegetation between us or whatever. And the other thing too is people are rolling in these kits, they can't feel anything.
Oh yeah,
you got to hit him in the face. Yeah,
read on the radio or something. I might hear it, but I'm not going to feel shit.
No.
All right, let's go for the last question now for Mustang today. So, simple question, but hopefully we can go into some detail for this. Like, you have some really cool gameplay videos, and they're just really fun to watch. How did you come up with the structure for your gameplay videos?
That's a big question, mate. Honestly, that's a huge one, right? When I first started making YouTube videos, I think my objective, I was trying to convey the experience of what it was to be a sneaky player, ghillie sniping, getting in those positions, having the drop on enemy players who had no idea that you were there, knocking them out, and putting across that sniping experience. And as you touched on earlier in the chat, it's actually quite boring a lot of the time when you're, especially you just watch your camera in real time when you're ghillie sniping. It's very slow, and you're moving slowly. There's no running and jumping. There's no dynamism in the camera. So it's very hard to put across that level of tension, excitement, and a sense that if you do something wrong here, you've gone from the hunter to the hunted. When you're sniping and you're a ghillie sniper and you're invisible and you're looking at the enemies through those crosshairs, it's this feeling that you can pull that trigger and take them out at any moment. But you know that if you make a mistake, those full auto AEGs are going to turn on you, and you've gone from being the hunted to the hunter, and you've got a massive disadvantage. So all you've got is your sidearm pistol, which has got a mag of 20, 25 BBs. They've often got even a rental player with a high cap with 300-400 BBs in a full auto AEG is going to have a massive advantage over you. And to get that sense over in the camera, that's what I wanted to put across. And it was hard. It took me a long time to get anywhere close to what I wanted to do. But then I think there was a lot of inspiration from, I think a lot of the guys, like, I think I probably looked at Silo and realized that when he was putting a video together, you could see that he was often teleporting around the map. It wasn't a true representation of what was happening in the day. And I realized at that point that it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be 100% true to what happens in the day. And I was looking at the retention graphs, and I was realizing that if I got hit and I was taken out, the retention just dropped. Oh, I've been taken out, back to respawn, I'm rejoined the game. The retention graph would just be a massive drop, and the videos don't perform. So honestly, I started taking out when I was being hit. So often, I do have a very good kill death ratio in a game. I probably, if I have less than 4 or 5 to 1 kill death ratio in a game day, I'm not having a good day. But on a normal game day, I probably get taken out half a dozen times in the day, but you'll only see me get taken out once or none. So it's that realization that I don't have to present perfectly what's happening on the game day that made me realize I can make better videos. And it was also the realization that you have to have a really good story. You have to have the beginning, you have to have a middle, you have to have an end. Yeah, people have to anticipate what's going to come at the end. So you have to have an intro that's giving them an idea of what to expect for the rest of the video. And all of this stuff kind of started to come together about 5 years ago. It started to really come together. And now when I'm putting videos together, when I go to a field, I know it's rare that I don't have an idea about what the video is going to be about before I actually play the game. Now, it might be that I have an idea, like I might have this to go to a field with, and I know the whole gameplay is going to be based around this, looking at the features, looking at why it's a good gun, looking at the excitement, the sensation, the experience. I know there's going to be I know how the video is going to be structured before I go there. But then I might go to the field and something better happens, and there's a real story happens on the field. But how do I structure a video? Is I have an idea before I go to the field. I then go and record, and it doesn't really matter what happens on the game day because I know generally what the structure of the video is going to be before I've been there. But something else might happen on the game day that's very exciting. There might be a cheater, for example. There might be a hashtag Airsoft drama moment. There might be just a very, like, the gameplay that I'm coming out with next is the ICS Tomahawk, which is a really bad gun, by the way. It's not fit for purpose at the moment. But I've got a few upgrades in it. I've got a Mancraft kit, and the whole video was going to be structured around this cursed rifle. But something very, very cool has happened on the game day, which involved me lying down and someone going over the top of me and almost treading on my face. And it's just an incredible Ghillie sniper moment. And also, this week, someone's made a troll video about me, attacking me on YouTube. So the video is now going to be restructured to be, why am I banned? What are the crazy reasons for me being banned? What we touched on earlier. So I'm going to use this troll video and integrate that to create the structure of the video. Here's some crazy reasons I'm banned. And then go into the video with me landing the headshots on these players in the gameplay, because honestly, I don't give an F what people think about how I play the game. As long as there's fields that support me and who appreciate me, I don't care how I play. I play how I play because I know there's enough fields around the world who appreciate me for who I am and how I play the game. So I will juxtaposition the troll against what happens on the game day, and what was initially planned, which was going to be based around this new rifle with an HPA setup, has now morphed over the last 24 hours. So even though it's the same footage, the story and the context and the introduction has all been morphed because of what's happened in my Airsoft experience this week. That's a bit of a long, meandering explanation to your question, but hopefully that's kind of touched on my chaotic mindset.
Let's bring the podcast to a close now. We're going to be around, an hour and 15 minutes. And I think this is a really good time to end it. It's also 2:30 a.m. and I want to go to bed. We've gone through the questions that were all submitted. I think we got some really good answers. You were able to expand on all the points really well. And you gave us some really cool answers, some really good stories, some great insights. And I feel I've learned a lot more about sniping and a little bit more about you, man. So thank you really much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, Defrowe.
This episode is brought to you by Hefe's Airsoft Solutions. Use code DEFROWE10 at checkout.